What's going on, guys? Unknown Player here, and today in this video, once again, we've got several topics to discuss. I wanted to go over some interesting stuff about this big secret place called Myriad that we heard about yesterday, and an update to some of that info, as well as some other stuff happening recently, like tons of people getting banned, and updates to the PC and consoles. Now, the first thing I wanted to discuss was this hidden place called Myriad. Of course, in the data files, you can hear dozens of the factions and vendors talking about going to a place called Myriad, which is hidden to us, and then they also talk about going back there, referencing it as a location will go inside Destiny 2. So of course we all assumed this would be a future DLC location, but as it turns out it's most likely not the case, and I'm almost certain at this point that Myriad is not a new secret place we'll go to, but instead just the early name for Nessus. I saw a couple people speculate this in my comments of yesterday's video and also on the original post of the sound files, so I looked into it, did a ton more research, and found some pretty undeniable evidence that Myriad is simply the early name for Nessus, unfortunately. So going through the long list of things that we know about this place called Myriad, apparently it's supposed to be on the edge of our solar system, which is also where Nessus is. Now, it's also said that this Myriad place wasn't there before, but all of a sudden appears to us, which is also what Nessus did. This is because Nessus isn't actually a planet or a moon, it's a planetoid or a centaur. I'm not going to go too in depth on the astronomy, but it has a weird orbit around the sun, and because of this, you don't know exactly where it's going to be. Now, as well as that, we also know the Vex have nearly entirely transformed it into a machine world, meaning it's going to mess with the mass of it, and this is also a big theory of why it's so irregular, because the Vex messing with it has changed it even more, meaning it's going to appear and disappear and be very unpredictable. Now, this is also why the Exodus Black ship crashed on it in the first place, because it wasn't supposed to be there. It was actually flying to a different location, and then because Nessus basically appeared out of nowhere, that's why the Exodus Black crashed into it. This also fits the same description as Myriad and explains why it appeared out of nowhere to us. So continuing down the list of why we know that Myriad is the same place as Nessus, we know that Myriad has a strong Vex presence, which also is the same as Nessus. It's also said in the audio files that the reason we go to this Myriad place is because of a signal, and that is the same one that we get in the campaign from Cade on Nessus, because of course he needs rescuing from the Vex. There's also the Ghost Shell, which of course was found by the Russian player early on in the launch, and they said it finds extra resources on the Myriad, and that was changed later to Nessus, so this also makes a ton of sense. It wasn't changed to cover it up, it was simply changed because that was the early name for it. You can also look at the Destiny wiki or the strategy guide, and the description for Nessus mentions braving the dangers and exploring the myriad of mysteries, so there you go, that is another time the word Myriad is going to pop up. Even more evidence is in a batch of concept art for Destiny 2, and I've showed this off before in videos, but this all shows early names for a bunch of stuff, so you can see initial kind of development names, and this one, which is clearly Nessus, is called Myriad Crash Site. So the final piece of evidence for this is in the shaders of Destiny 2. We know the early name for Io is of course Eden. Inside the game now we have two shaders called Echoes of Io and Flowers of Io. In the database you're going to find two scrapped versions of these exact shaders. The Echoes one is called the Eden shader A, and the Flowers one is called the Eden shader B. So obviously they're placeholder shaders from when Io was called Eden. This is actually the same thing for Nessus and Myriad. So in the game we have Nessus Mirage and Nessus Pursuit as two shaders. In the database we have scrapped versions called Myriad shader A and Myriad shader B, which are obviously the same shaders, just different names. So you can see Nessus was definitely called Myriad, and that ton of evidence I just went over pretty much debunks it. Now, this also does raise the question for Ganymede, which was another one referenced by a bunch of vendors as a place we'll go. It's also a moon of Jupiter, the same as Io, so it's possible they originally wanted to do Ganymede and then later decided to make it into Io. But there is zero evidence for this. Io's early name was Eden, not Ganymede, so it does have its own special lore. So honestly, it's hard to say if Ganymede will be a future location or if it's just the same thing as an early version of Io. It's not the same as the whole Nessus Myriad thing, that is definitely 100% the same thing, but this one's hard to tell. The Dead Orbit vendor does have several lines mentioning our travels to the Jovians and the moons of Jupiter plural, implying that we'll go to multiple moons of Jupiter. So I think it's 50-50, it could be a future location, or it could be a scrapped idea they just recorded lines for just in case. But we know the Jovians are very important in the Destiny story, because it is where the Nine are apparently from and still are, it's where they're in charge of, and also where a few Ahamkara are still surviving, so maybe one day we'll see some dragons on Ganymede, who knows, but let me know what you think of this in the comments. So the next thing I wanted to talk about was some very interesting stuff going down recently since the PC launch of Destiny 2, which is people getting banned, apparently 400 players, maybe even more than that. A lot of very weird stuff. It's all very, very confusing. A lot of misinformation being spread, and some things is true, some things aren't, but we still don't know the full picture. We do know a ton of people have been banned on PC because of kind of illegitimate reasons. Many things like running tools like Discord, XSplit, OBS, trying to record stuff and stream. Things obviously aren't hacking, but the thing is about Destiny 2, the game is very, very, very strict, and they're built in a way to make it pretty difficult for you to be able to exploit or cheat on the PC platform. Now, the main issue here is, of course, that a lot of the same cheating softwares run the exact same way as some of the harmless softwares like Discord, for example. Anything that tries to record your gameplay or even as an overlay is going to inject code into Destiny 2, and the game might think you're cheating and ban you for it. So this has also been happening quite a lot, and it's a pretty complicated situation. Now, since a lot of people have been reporting getting banned for no reason, Bungie have come out with a couple of statements and also updates on those statements. They said Destiny 2 cannot automatically ban you, only Bungie can ban a player after a manual investigation. So they're saying that each ban is manually done by a real person, not just automatically by software. And yesterday on the day of launch, they banned approximately 400 players on PC, which is crazy. So those are manual bans of people actually cheating, 400 just on the first launch day. So Bungie also said they did not and will not issue any bans for the use of overlays or performance tools, including Discord, XSplit, OBS, RTSS, etc. Now, this got even more people confused because a ton of people, like I said, were banned for doing nothing wrong, no cheating or hacking, just simply playing the game, and some of them were banned even when they first logged on and haven't even played the full game yet. So Bungie gave an update to the statement and said, as part of our ban review process, we've identified a group of players who were banned in error. These players have been unbanned. The bans were not related to third-party applications listed above. We'll continue to review the process we use to ensure a fun and fair game. So I think they're still looking into it, but most people should be unbanned by now. But I do know there was another issue where some people from the beta were, for some reason at the end of it, given some kind of issue, and then when they logged into Destiny 2, the full game, they were banned. So again, it's a lot of complicated stuff. I'm not too sure what's going on myself. I think there's a lot of confusion, a lot of misinformation. So I don't know the full picture. I don't think many people do, even Bungie, but hopefully a lot of people get unbanned. And to be on the safe side, it's worth knowing that some applications that are recording your game or using overlays may be causing the game to think you're hacking. And I know things like NVIDIA Shadowplay, Discord, OBS, XSplit, all the main ones are apparently okay, but some other less known softwares may be causing the issue. So keep an eye out on what softwares are running on your PC until Bungie can figure out exactly what's causing the problems. So as well as that, Bungie also announced they will be treating the PC and consoles as the same thing. Essentially, they will be getting updates and patches at the same time, and we already know the DLCs, events, and launches are going to be in sync from now on. It's worth noting that on PC, because the mouse and keyboard, it does play differently to consoles, meaning they will receive different balancing patches. So there probably will be some weapons that are kind of average on consoles, but are really, really good, maybe even overpowered on PC. And again, because aiming is very different on a mouse, there may be some differences in terms of patches and balances. And Bungie said there will be different buffs, nerfs, and tweaks across the platform. So of course, the main updates in themselves are going to be shared. It's going to be interesting to see the differences in future updates. Of course, with PC just launching, we can probably expect a patch next week or maybe in a few days from now to address any launch issues or bugs, and we know they are working on a bunch of stuff for that PC launch. So there you go, a couple of things I thought were interesting and worth discussing. As always, if you enjoyed the video and want to help support the channel, then a like rating down below would be much appreciated. You can click the image on screen right now to be taken to another video I recently made, and I'll see you guys in the next one.